it was worth it, just, you know, I was heading in a different direction, and just that freedom, and it turned out to be a great decision for me. It was a great decision for the company. They got some money, and, a great decision for me. Got a very successful album, The Blueprint 3, and, which had Empire State of Mind on it. Was sold about, 4 million singles itself, and
which someday may become the anthem for New York.
Yeah, actually, my first #1 record was, as a solo artist. I had #1s as collaborate with collaborators, but my first #1 across the board album, record came off that album. So it was like really good time for me, and I think, and I believe in, everything aligning up. So I think it happened at that time for the right reason.
That leads to, you mentioned things line up. Luck. We all know hard work's essential, discipline's essential, staying power is essential, but there's that element there that you can't quantify, but you know it's there. Warren, you've had some thoughts.
Well, there's a lot of luck. I mean, just being born in the United States in 1930, the odds were like 30 to 1 against me. I mean, I didn't have anything to do with picking the United States as I emerged, and having decent genes for certain things. And in my own case, I was sort of wired for capital allocation. And being wired for capital allocation a couple hundred years ago in Nebraska wouldn't have been a thing. And even now, being born in various parts of the world, it wouldn't have meant much. But here I was in this soon-to-be very rich capitalistic system, and it just so happened that what I did paid off enormously in a market system like we have. And if I'd had a talent in some other area that was way less commercial, I mean, I would have had a good time doing it, but it wouldn't have paid off like this. But of course, Jay said it perfectly when he talked about, he's in there recording for himself, and the money comes afterwards. I mean, I got to do what I love. I mean, and it doesn't get any luckier than that. If you can spend your lifetime, and I'm 80 now, and doing things you love every single day. I mean, I would be doing what I do now, and I would have done it in the past, if the payoff had been in seashells or shark's teeth or anything else. If you can go to work every morning, I tap dance to work, and I come down, and every day's exciting. So that is lucky. I mean, that didn't have to happen that way. If I'd been born in 1930, if I'd been born a female, if I'd been born black, I would not have had the same opportunities that I had. I mean, it's chance. I mean, my parents loved my sisters just as much as they loved me. My sisters are just as smart or smarter than I am and all of that, but they didn't have the same expectations in the 30s for a young smart girl as they had for a young smart guy. And so I've had all kinds of luck. I had the luck of, I got turned down by Harvard. Well, getting turned down by Harvard meant I got to study under Ben Graham at Columbia, which changed my life. All kinds of things have worked out. So I just hope I stay lucky. I've been lucky for 80 years.
Now, where you grew up, you could have easily have ended up, as you've discussed with your friends, who did something, and by golly, they were put away and didn't get the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, there are very few people that from my neighborhood, in my environment, that make it out. I mean, forget about to be successful, to make it out alive, or to be incarcerated. I have a great friend, who just came home. Who's one of the most beautiful people you ever meet. He's, he just came home from doing 13 years, and we were together every single day. And had it not been for music and music taking me out, at the right time, my life could very easily have been his. Very easily. We were together every single day.
Mention the story about London.
Yeah. So they did, we were into different things. We were into a lot of street things, and just so happened I had a talent to make music. And a guy by the name of Jazz, who I started out with really early, he got the opportunity, he got to deal with EMI. He had the opportunity to go to London to record his album. And, I went along with him, and we waited for 2 months. Well, in that 2 months, there was a sting operation, and they took, my friend I'm talking about, took him away for 13 years. And the only reason I was in there because I was away, doing this music stuff.
Amazing. Business models. We've touched on it, that just because you've done something right before with the music business, they're accustomed to doing things a certain way. World changes, they can't adjust. Warren, what advice do you have? You've seen it in the newspaper business. You made your name. Washington Post, Buffalo News.
Right.
Legalized monopoly. 30 IQ, you could put them in those businesses and they'd succeed.
Yeah, right.
and then now they're
It happens.
all crashing.
It happens. I mean, street railways were big here almost 100 years ago. But I will say this about investing. Everything you do learn is cumulative. I mean, that doesn't mean that industries stay good forever or businesses stay good forever, but learning to think about business models. What I learned at 20 is useful to me now. What I learned at 25 is useful to me now. And so it's not a field that changes dramatically in terms of the underlying principles. It's like physics. I mean, there's underlying principles. Now they're doing all kinds of things with physics they weren't doing 50 years ago. But if you know if you got the principles, if you know what makes a good business, if you know what makes a good manager, if you know what makes a good product, and you learn that in one business, there is some transference to other businesses as you go along, and you learn what things you're not going to understand. I mean, knowing what to leave out is just as important as knowing what to focus on. And I don't think I can win every game. Somebody said, "How do you beat Bobby Fischer?" You play him any game except chess. So I don't play Bobby Fischer chess. And there's a lot of value to learning that over time and learning what you're good at and what you're not good at.
And Jay, your business is like in the newspaper business. You yourself have said that record companies are anachronistic, that they lost it. They lost it with Napster. Explain how they did it and what you learned from it and how you think you can go forward and survive in an environment where what had been true for decades is no longer true.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing about a business is recognizing change. That the variables are not the same. There's a big thing called the internet, so it changes the landscape of everything. I think the consumption of music is at an all-time high, but as we see, the music business is down, so something has to be done there. It was a time in music where a hit solved everything. You just had a hit, it didn't matter what was going on. Get a hit, and it solved everyone's problem.
Covered a lot of sins.
That's no longer true, not today. And I think just having that mentality for so long, I think the music business is still stuck in that place because we haven't figured that we haven't figured it out.
That Napster, they made a huge mistake on Napster.
Yeah, well, Napster came along and there was this file sharing thing, and at the time we had the opportunity to embrace it, and this way you can control it. It was one place. But when you stop Napster and we shut down Napster, just the arrogance that we had, it made 1 million Napsters. Now it's impossible to control. Just that sort of thinking. I think in business one of the biggest things is to open yourself up for change. You don't have to change who you are and how you operate, but just if the landscape is changed, then the way we do business has to change somewhat. We don't have to change who we are. We have to change the way we go about it. Because like I said, the consumption of music is higher than ever.
Well, you've done it in your own music. As you've gotten older, you've brought audiences with you and others have not. What are you doing in terms of the model that's been shattered in music? You mentioned when you left the record label company, you saw you had to do certain things. How are you recreating a model that can work in the future?
For one, we're taking our time with artists and artist development. For two, there's just so many different parts of the business that we're in. For a long time, music wasn't into touring. Now they're making up these 360. I don't want this to be like a record company bashing thing, but now they're doing this
they bash themselves.
You can do it now. You could have done it 20 years ago.
Yeah. This whole 360 model, and it's like that's not what the record company does. The record company is not in the touring business, so why would an artist sign rights to you, and that's not what you do. That's not your area expertise. But we're with the biggest concert promoter there is. So there's You know, we're into publishing. There's just so many different aspects of music we're in.